So as Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes turn their attention to this weekend and start gearing up for a massive game against Arizona today, we need to ask the question and have the discussion, could the Colorado Buffaloes be also gearing up for some massive recruiting wins? Something we need to discuss. But before we can hop into all of this, you all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe Colorado's about to go on a recruiting run? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And coming off of the weekend, Colorado had some massive visitors get to be able to see and enjoy Boulder this weekend. And per all reports, they loved their time, and that's awesome to hear. And we've talked about some of these names before. In fact, last week, we talked about many of these names. But we're going to start this off talking about a defensive guy that I know Colorado Buffalo fans would love to have commit, and that's King Joseph Edwards from Georgia. And this is someone I've talked about 3 times now, and every time I talk about him, I have got to bring up Coach Nick Williams. Because Coach Nick Williams was a phenomenal hire whenever Coach Prime hired him. And this is exactly why. This is a guy that worked for Georgia, worked for A&M, has ties to the state of Georgia, and was beloved by the players. And now that he's with Colorado, hitting the recruiting trail, his results are being shown. He's flexing his muscles, and he's winning some big-time battles. And more importantly, he's giving you a pipeline to one of the most talent-rich states in the nation, Georgia. And that's exactly where King Joseph Edwards comes in. Because King Joseph Edwards is an edge, per 24/7 Sports, who ranks as the number 327 player in the nation, just outside that top 300. But in my opinion, he has all the ability of any of the top 300 guys. He is an unbelievable football player, and he plays for Mill Creek in Georgia. Now, Mill Creek is a high school that is all too familiar with talented players, and King Joseph Edwards is all too familiar about practicing with and playing against guys that will be playing on the next level. And anytime you can get that, you love that. We're going to have a very similar conversation here very soon about the next player, so remember that. But this would be a huge win. You would be getting a massive need. Anything along the defensive front and the offensive front is priority number 1 right now for the Colorado Buffaloes. You have got fantastic wide receivers. I even like your running backs. Quarterback is a non-discussion. And you've got some really solid defensive backs. No doubt more work needs to be done there. Linebacker is an area where I think you have some guys. I think they would be greatly assisted if they had more help along the defensive front. But nonetheless, the defensive recruiting, and especially along that defensive front and offensive front, is going to be a major priority for the Colorado Buffaloes, and King Joseph Edwards would go a long way in addressing some of those needs. I'm always interested to see how Coach Prime is going to go about these recruiting classes. What is he going to look for in high school as compared to what he tries to get out the transfer portal? Because personally, I believe the transfer portal is about to go absolutely insane this year. Mark my words, we're going to have so many conversations in the very near future about the transfer portal and some huge names entering the transfer portal. You mark my words on that. But this is not the only player that Colorado fans need to be excited about. In fact, they need to be so excited about King Joseph Edwards because, 1, he's a fantastic player. 2, just perusing on his Twitter, it looks like he had an unbelievable time in Boulder, and that's so cool to see. It's always so awesome to watch these guys who work so hard in high school, dedicate themselves to football. They get the opportunity to take these visits to these major institutions. It's just awesome to see them have fun with it. That's what this is all about, and it always makes me happy to see them happy and having a good time. It was just awesome to see how much King Joseph Edwards looked like he enjoyed that visit. And for Colorado fans, a crystal ball has been inserted by none other than Steve Wiltfong. And if Fong crystal balls you somewhere, you can usually bet your bottom dollar that's going to be a money crystal ball. Fong has the best information in the business, so this is one we've got to keep up with. But now we need to move towards a name that would rattle college football if Colorado landed. And that's none other than the number 1 offensive tackle in the nation, top 20 player in the nation, regardless of position, and one of the most coveted prospects in the entire class of 2024, 5-star offensive tackle out the state of Florida who plays for IMG Academy, Jordan Seaton. And you remember how just a few seconds ago, whenever we were talking about King Joseph Edwards, I was talking about Mill Creek and saying he played against guys and practiced against guys that were going to make it to the next level. And if you can get guys that have been around that environment, I think you absolutely do it. Well, Jordan Seaton pretty much personifies what I'm talking about when I have that conversation. Let me explain. IMG Academy is absolutely loaded with future college football players. So Jordan Seaton is an individual who gets to practice with and against future college football players. He's going to be playing on Friday evenings against future college football players because IMG is going to play some great schools. That means you're going to get someone who is battle tested. And though there's no guarantee that it always translates, you're always going to have some times where it just doesn't work out. If you can get a guy from IMG, you are exponentially increasing your chances of that guy translating because you can point to so many times where he was playing against a 4-star, a 5-star. In fact, in the case of Jordan Seaton, I think it's really important to note that he has 2 guys on his team, David Stone, who is a top 15 player in the nation, 5-star defensive lineman, and then Jaden Jackson, who is another really coveted defensive lineman. He practices against those guys. So Jordan Seaton is about as battle-tested of an offensive tackle as they come. Colorado got him in for a visit this past weekend, and that was huge. The fact that you were able to get him to take a visit out there is massive, and it speaks to something I've talked about on this channel several times. That's the Coach Prime effect. That's how Coach Prime moves the needle. If you're still wondering, how does Coach Prime move the needle? Ask yourself, would Colorado have gotten a visit from Jordan Seaton last year? And the answer is an overwhelming no. Some of you may have even chuckled while going to answer that question, but fast forward just a year, and that's the effect Coach Prime has. The fact that he's even getting these guys on campus, that's a long ways from not even being able to get them to pick up the phone. That's a lot of progress made in a very short amount of time. But let's talk about the battle for Jordan Seaton, because as much as Colorado is putting on a full-court press, and it looks to be a fantastic full-court press, we also have to understand that all the major players in the nation are after Jordan Seaton. You're talking about your Ohio States, you're talking about your Tennessees, your Alabamas, and Alabama has historically had such a solid pipeline to IMG Academy, where if we look at the Crimson Tide right now, J.C. Latham, who may be the next first-rounder from Alabama, came from IMG. Tyler Booker, who is playing with his hair on fire, IMG. So they currently have 2 starting linemen that hail from IMG. Going to be interesting to see how this battle shakes out, but there is no question that Colorado vaulted up the list of teams you have got to be looking out for when they got this visit. That means something. Do not be disenfranchised into thinking it was absolutely meaningless. It meant enough for him to go out there. And Coach Prime, we know what he can do whenever he gets in the ear of a 5-star. We've seen him do it twice. So, count him out at your own peril. This is going to be phenomenal to see. I can't wait to see how recruiting turns out. Josh Newberg of On3, who does fantastic work. Shout out to Josh Newberg and shout out to On3. He had a tweet the other day that I've referenced a few times because I think it's fantastic. I think it's fascinating that we've seen 200 decommitments thus far this cycle. And typically in recruiting cycles, we average around 600 decommitments. So Josh Newberg asked the question to all of his Twitter followers, do you believe we are going to see 400 decommitments? I only bring that up to really highlight why I'm so excited, not only for what Colorado will do in recruiting, but what will recruiting bring us as college football fans. I can't wait, but I also can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about, first and foremost, King Joseph Edwards, and then secondly, do you believe Colorado could shock college football and land Jordan Seaton? I can't wait to hear from you. That's it. See ya.